Let's give a round of applause for all of our kids that went on this trip. Yeah. The miracle of technology, you get to see it, but you didn't get to hear the music, but it's all good. It's all good. So, I'm still reflecting on this trip. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I think about the way the trip went. And first of all, going on a Boundary Waters trip, it sounds like a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, but it's more than just fun, because some really interesting things happen. You get in a canoe and you paddle to the end of the lake and you pick up all your stuff and you carry it to the next lake on a trail, and it's called portaging. And you get back in, and that takes some teamwork. So as we're coming up to the portage, we're talking about who's going to carry what and how we're going to get over on one trip, because we don't want to have to go back for more. And then you get on the next lake, and you need to find your way to the end of the lake or your campsite. And normally you have a guide for that, and we did have a guide. But our guides went to our kids and said, one of our kids and said, here's the map, here's the compass. If you take us, we're following you, and if you take us down the wrong arm of the lake, we're going to get lost. Did they do that on your trip too? Oh, they did it on our trip. And everybody had a chance to navigate. Everybody had a chance to steer the canoe or the back of the canoe. We got to our campsite, and I think I told you last time, a campsite is just a couple of roughed out tent pads, a fire grate bolted into the ground, and a place to go to the bathroom back in the woods. It's out in the open. It's just a little box that you sit on. And so when we get there, that's all the comforts of home you get. There is no bed, and there is no house. You have to set up your tents. You have to roll out your sleeping bags. If you're going to eat, you have to build a fire. We talked about that last time, and prepare and clean the dishes, and all of that. Once again, it takes teamwork. We're working together, and we got closer as we did all of that. And then, of course, you could take your cell phone if you want, but it doesn't do any good because we're off the grid. There is no cell service up there. And so what that also means is you have lots of time just to sort of be with each other, play with each other, talk to each other. And we had devotions at the end of the night. And, there were just so many. Think of a 14-year-old experiencing the success of navigating a lake with a bunch of islands on it and a bunch of arms here, there, and everywhere, and getting us to the right place. That builds you up. Think about the way when you work together on a project like setting up camp, that draws you closer to the people that you work with. Right? And of course, of all of that, then after the trip, and this was really interesting to me, I had one person and a second person, one person in particular, came up to me and said, these Bible studies at night, this talking time and devotion time, Pastor, can we do more of that when we get back home? And that comment has not left me. It was 2 weeks ago. I'm still thinking about that, and thinking about it. First of all, how do we make that happen? Because I'm just one guy, and we need leaders to help with this. And this is a shout out to anybody who thinks that they might want to help lead something like that. But also just thinking about the comment itself and where it came from. This is a high schooler, and already she knows, she understands that there has to be something more to life. I mean, I think about the lives of the average high schooler, and they're involved in football and basketball or volleyball. Maybe they're on student council. They've got a job at Fairway or Hy-Vee or wherever it is they're working. There may be in music programs or drama or debate, whatever it is they're doing. They have all of these things that fill their time. But there's a difference between filling time and being full. And that person who made that comment to me understood that. And I think all the kids, each in their own way, understood that. There has to be something more than all the thousands of ways we fill our life. And don't get me wrong, those things are good. They are great things. You know, if you're going to play football, be the best football player you can be. And it's entertaining and it's fun. And once again, it builds success, right? It builds a sense of self-esteem. It does all those things. Football, track, music, drama, whatever it is, do that. Be the best math student you can possibly be. Be the best employee you can possibly be. But that's not the final word. It fills life, but it doesn't make life full. Same was true with our Kids First program that just ended on Thursday. And, you know, we started this thing at beginning of June, right after school started, and we had this idea. You all know we're going to do a little math and reading program, and we're going to keep them here all day long. I thought Allie was a little crazy when she said all day, 8 to 5. But you know what? She was absolutely right. And the kids came, and we had these big numbers, you know, over 30 kids coming. And I fully expected that after about 2 or 3 weeks, those numbers would drop off. And you know something? After 2 or 3 weeks, the numbers didn't drop off. We had ups and downs, but the average attendance was the same. And then we took a 2-week break in the middle of the summer because we had Vacation Bible School. We asked the kids to come. I think some of them did. And then we took the canoe trip. And we came back, and I thought, well, there's just going to be a trickle of kids. We still had 28 kids here until the very end of the program. Now, there are all kinds of ways in this community that kids can entertain themselves. There are all kinds of things. If this were just for fun, why would they come here or continue to come here when there are other things that are different and probably more fun? But I think they came back because something special was happening here. They felt loved in a way that maybe just kind of surprised them. And you know, once you get that, you keep coming back for more, because that's the real deal. That's not filled life. That's full life. See, we're searching for something more. All of us, whether you're in high school or grade school, or you're 55, 60, 70, 80 years old, it does not matter. We're all looking for something that doesn't just fill life, but makes life full. We're looking for a better way. Let's sing. So Jesus says, I am the bread of life. Whoever eats of me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never thirst again. And I thought about the usual ways we look to as we try to lead full lives. And I came across something a couple of years ago. It's a kind of rat poison. All right, bear with me here. It's kind of interesting. Can you hear me okay? Not really? Having trouble? Could you kick me up just a little bit? Thank you. All right. So there we go. Better? Okay. So it's a kind of rat poison. And the way the rat poison works is this. The rat is eating this poison. It smells like food, tastes like food, feels like food, the whole thing. But there's an ingredient in the rat poison that gets into the brain and turns off the switch in the brain that tells the rat that it's full. Okay, and meanwhile, the rat is not really eating food. The rat is eating filler, just stuff that doesn't do a thing in terms of nourishing him. And so the rat eats the poison, and as he eats the poison, he thinks he's getting something that's going to nourish him. It's not nourishing him, but what it's doing is it keeps flipping that switch off that says that you're full. So the rat continues to eat and eat and eat until the rat eats itself to death. All right? I think that that is the perfect metaphor for so much of what we do today. Because when we look for meaning in life, all the usual things don't work. It's sort of like that rat poison. There's a switch back there that gets turned off, and you never get full. And all you're doing is feeding on something that looks like food and feels like food and smells like food, but it's not food. It's not nourishing you, and that hole in your stomach continues to be there. I mean, just pick one. Money. So maybe you have $100,000 in your bank account or in your stock portfolio, and you think, if only I had 150, I would be set. And so you work and slave and you save until you get to the 150. And guess what? I need 200. So you work and slave and save until you get 200, and guess what? Maybe $500,000 would get me there through retirement. So then you work and slave and you get there, and on it goes, and $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever it is that you end up with, or it's never enough. Why? Because the enough is not the stuff that you're filling yourself with. There's a problem inside. It's a spiritual problem. Something needs to be filled. And we look to things to fill that emptiness, and it doesn't do it. And money's just one thing. And by the way, the accumulation of money, once again, just like be the best football player you can be, it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. Just don't look to it to give your life meaning. It won't happen. Your career, same way, right? Vacations, the things that you buy that are supposed to satisfy you. You get that new thing, you think, oh, this is it. I just happy as can be until next week. And next week comes and you need the next thing that's going to make you happy. And you eat and you eat and you eat, and the switch just keeps turning off, and there's nothing there that fills you. The emptiness still is there. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. He who eats of me will never be hungry again, and you who believe in me will never be thirsty. What's so different? Well, think about what you're feeding on here. Jesus is God himself who comes to earth just because he loves you. And he loves you so much that he gives up everything so that he might have you as his own. That's the basic Christian message. You've heard it from the time you were in grade school, and we keep saying it over and over and over again. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever would believe in him shall not perish, but have, can you say it with me? Eternal life, right? We've known it since the time we were young. And it's true here as well. And once you feed on Jesus and his self-giving love, someone who says, I'm giving it all up for you, once you feed on that, once you are in a relationship with that Jesus, all of a sudden, things begin to change in your life. And you start becoming what Jesus is to you. You become for others what Jesus has been for you. And now, instead of feasting on the latest and greatest bit of rat poison that you keep eating and it doesn't fill you, and consuming whatever it is that you think is going to make you happy, but it doesn't, you find that you start giving yourself away. And not just your things, but your heart. You give it away, and Jesus comes into your life, gives everything for you, and as you start giving to others, giving your heart away to others, the hunger is gone. And you know, you'll live forever. And I know this is completely counterintuitive. In terms of the way the world works, the world says, buy more, get more, fill yourself. And you can continue to do that till the cows come home and you will never be full. But as St. Paul says, let me show you a better way. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 31. Let me show you a better way. And then guess what's next? Chapter 13. If I speak in the tongue of men and of angels but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or jealous, it's not boastful, does not demand its own way. It seeks out the other. It gives everything for the other. Now faith, hope, love abide, but the greatest of these is love. That's the love that Jesus has for you. He gives up everything. And once you have tasted of that relationship with Jesus, life and meaning turn upside down, and you empty yourself over and over and over again, and you are always full. Let's sing. Says, let me show you a better way. And then Jesus, and he's reflecting on Jesus who says, I am the bread of life. He who believes in me will never be hungry. He who eats of me and drinks of me will never be thirsty. Now, here's the really interesting part of this story. Because all of this conversation with Jesus and the bread of life begins with a problem. They are out in the wilderness. They're out away from stores and civilization, and Jesus is teaching them, and it's not 5,000 people, there are 5,000 men, which is code for saying there are 5,000 families out there. Okay? So it's not 5,000, it's probably 10 or 15 or 20,000 people out there, and there is nothing to eat. Here's the interesting part. The only food in the entire place with 15, 20,000 people is one single boy with 5 cake loaves of bread, just little loaves, enough for himself, and 2 fish. That's all it is, just enough for himself. And something has happened with him, with Jesus, I believe. And by the way, that's not an accident, that little detail. That is not an accident. That's not just a throwaway line in the story. I believe it's in there for a purpose, and I'll explain in just a minute. The word for child, this child, is pedia in Greek. You've heard the term pediatrics. That's where it comes from. It means either, and they're interchangeable, child or slave child. And they're interchangeable because in those days, children had no rights. And they were slaves to the people with whom they lived, either their parents or their step-parents or whoever it was. So they were sort of low person on the totem pole. So you have this person who is nothing and has only 5 cake loaves and 2 fish to give. And he gives them to Jesus. And out of this small gift from this person who doesn't account for anything, 15, 20,000 people are fed. And when they picked up the pieces, 12 basketfuls of food are left over. 1 for each of the servers, the 12 disciples. Someone who is nothing in the world gives whatever it is that he has. He's touched by Jesus, and he gives that gift to Jesus, and miraculous things take place. Two modern day stories, two examples. You hear me okay back there, Larry? Kick me up a little bit. That's all you can do? Okay, well, I just have to talk up more, okay? Eventually, it's not her fault. It's because I'm talking too softly, all right? So, two modern day examples. One you've maybe heard about. The other one I'm quite sure you haven't. A guy by the name of Millard Fuller. When he came from nothing, a dirt farmer from Alabama, or born of that, went to college, ended up in law school, and started a business while he was in college, a marketing business. And by the time he's 29 years old, has become a millionaire. And as he's done this, though, while he's been very successful in business, he is also losing his relationship with his wife. His health is declining, and he's finding that his integrity is also starting to erode away. And so he and his wife talk it over. They start making amends, and he becomes involved in a church. He decides that he's going to turn some things over to Jesus, and they sell everything they have. They give it to the poor, and they meet another guy, a preacher by the name of Clarence Jordan. You ever heard of the Cotton Patch Gospels? Clarence Jordan's the guy who wrote those. And he was leading a group of people who just wanted to find practical ways to bring Jesus into the world. And so Clarence and Millard and his wife Linda started talking about, what if we were to build modest homes and do it all with donated money and have the people who are going to live in that home help us build the home. And then when they're done to pay back the loan, they'll pay it back little at a time, no interest loan. Then they will also pay it back by helping the next house being built, helping on that. And so they did this with one house, and then with two houses, and then with three houses, and pretty soon it became a nationwide firestorm of homes being built. Millard and his wife, Linda, again gave up everything, and they moved to Africa. And they thought they could bring the idea there. And now, Habitat for Humanity is all around the world. Because this man, this brilliant man, who was a marketing genius, who at the age of 29 became a millionaire, decided that there was a better way. He was tired of looking at the rat poison as a way of filling his life. Story 2. And I don't think I've told this here yet. Leonard Anderson was a businessman in Sioux City, Iowa. And he was a member of Morningside Lutheran Church, my home church. And Leonard already had kids out of the house, and he was my 4th grade Sunday school teacher. Now that doesn't sound like much to you, but back in the 70s when I was in 4th grade, back in the 60s when I was in 4th grade, the job of teaching Sunday school was left to women. He was the only male on staff. And I remember that so well, and it made an impact on me. And Leonard made us learn the 23rd Psalm. He forced us to memorize it. And he said, but he didn't leave it at that. He said, there's a reason for this. He said, because when you are in trouble, when you are at your lowest point, maybe even when you're on your deathbed, I want the words of the Good Shepherd imprinted in your memory so that you never lose it, so that it's always there. Leonard's one of the reasons I'm here in front of you today. Because without him being loved by Jesus, and that love filling him to the point where he gave of himself, I would not have had that man in my life to help guide and direct me to the place where I am now. And I know it's not just me, it's others as well. You see, this whole Jesus thing, it can be a big movement or it can be a small movement. And you know what? Maybe you are one of these slave children. You have nothing. You think you're not very special. You don't have much to give. Maybe You don't think you have any gifts at all? Maybe it's just 5 cakes, 2 fish, whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's just taking a little time and going over to the Y and becoming a Y pal with one child. Maybe it's coming here on a Wednesday night and, you're way out of your element because you never ever thought about teaching Sunday school, which is now that Wednesday thing. Never thought about it, but now all of a sudden Pastor Dave has kind of planted this seed. And actually it's not Pastor Dave, but it's Jesus who's planted the seed. He's just using me as the mouthpiece. And you decide to make this decision that you're going to do something way outside the comfort zone. And you give it away. And the lives that you touch will be changed because you have opened yourself up to being used by Jesus to spread his love, to spread his self-giving. I have seen it this summer at Kids First. Kids who came in one way for one reason, and when they walked out the door on Thursday, they were different kids than when they started. I hope they come back, but you know what? If they don't, it's okay. Jesus used us to change them. And then they will become the agent of change for someone else. So how about you? I'm not going to ask you what your gift is because you might say, well, I don't have any. I'm just going to ask you to be open to the love of God and a Jesus who gives up everything for you. And I'm just going to ask you to keep your eyes open. And if you see someone that's in need, or someone that needs a friend, or you see some place where you think this is, it's on the edge for me, but you hear God calling you to try it. Try it. Because I will tell you that the only way this community is going to change, and frankly, the only way our country is going to change, the vitriol in the country these days, it's not going to change by people going to ethics class. It's going to change here with the love of Jesus in your heart, and then sharing that love with the person next to you. And for that we give God thanks and praise. Amen.